Okay, so welcome. We'll watch and wait as people join in. Your comments and your questions you can type in. So I'm Sophie. I am working in HypnoBirthing and birth companion work, and I'm just waiting for people to come on. We started bang on 8 o'clock. So this is Facebook Live. It's a live broadcast coming to you from London. And tonight we're going to be talking about using hypnobirthing techniques if a woman has had a previous Caesarean birth and she's interested in hypnobirthing either again or for her next birth or her next birth after that. And questions and comments to follow. I wanted to start when some of you have joined, so I'm just going to give it a few minutes. Welcome to the hypnobirthing group. For those of you who are new to hypnobirthing, it's a program to prepare women and her birth partners for birthing using deep relaxation techniques, hypnotherapy techniques to reprogram a mindset so that you're in a positive and happy place when you go into labour rather than possibly fearful or anxious. Let's crack on. At 1 minute past 8, I just want to introduce hypnobirthing group. This month we're talking about using hypnobirthing techniques for birth after a Caesarean birth. So maybe your goal is to have a vaginal birth next time round. And I know that there are various models of care around the world. Sometimes people are told that another Caesarean is the safest option. That's something you should explore, because I think there is research that suggests that isn't. Hi Abby, it's you, me and Andy at the moment. I'm just saying that sometimes if a woman has had a Caesarean birth first time round with her baby, when she comes to be pregnant again, she's maybe seeking something else, but advised that she should have a Caesarean. I know that where I am based in southeast London, that we have sort of VBAC clinics. So if you haven't heard of the term, hi abs, if you haven't heard of the term VBAC, it's just an acronym for vaginal birth after Caesarean, VBAC, and you can get HBAC as well, which is home birth after Caesarean, and you can get VBAC2 and VBAC3 and HBAC2, HBAC3, and that's got nothing to do with, I was going to say high-speed rail links, but unless you live in the UK you don't know what HS2 is, and that's a really lousy joke. But VBAC2 means maybe you had 2 Caesareans previously and then you're looking for a vaginal birth next. So we're waiting for some more people to hop on. Abby is on, and I know that Abby is a vaginal birth after Caesarean. Hi. So where are you watching us from this evening? Let us know. Whereabouts are you watching us from? Are you based in Europe? Are you in other parts of the world? Please ask your questions. You're really welcome to message admins for the group if that's what is better for you, if you wish to remain anonymous. So I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that was posed earlier. And this one was asked by, so I'm going to say, go straight through to talking about Chloe. So Chloe is asking about vaginal birth after Caesarean. She's had 2 Caesareans, so she's thinking of having a 3rd baby, and she would like to have a birth vaginally, and is wondering if hypnobirthing can help. So I think the more that you teach women hypnobirthing, the more that hypnobirthing is getting out there, and the more the results are showing that women have more positive and relaxed birth experiences, then the more likelihood there is that they're going to end up with a more straightforward birth. Now, whether that's kind of out the cat flap or the sunroof is down to a lot of strategizing. So let's get to the nitty gritty, shall we? Just let us know where you're messaging in from. Know that you can, hi Sheetal, you can comment underneath if you've got questions, or just say hi. It's really nice for me to know who you are and where you're watching from. That makes it easier for me to present. So if you're planning on birthing, Chloe is our example person, if you're planning on having vaginal birth after 2 previous caesareans, then the first thing you need to do is get your birth wishes together, and then you need to meet with somebody, a midwife who is senior, somebody who's a supervisor of midwives and possibly the consultant midwife, and you need to talk about what you'd like to have happen. So I know that there's somebody else on here. Abby, let me know if I can share some of the detail, otherwise I'll just like talk about somebody else. But there are some people who will shop around, as it were. So they will go to their hospitals and they will talk to their caregivers, and they'll say, I'd like to have a water birth because I've heard that water birthing and using hypnobirthing techniques puts me in a better position physically, because you won't be lying on your back with your vag pointing at the ceiling and your pelvis restricted. So being able to be in the pool, being able to move around is going to make birthing easier. And then some women are told, oh, no, you can't have a birth in water because we don't know about your womb and whether your womb's okay. And there is a risk, and somebody's asked about, thanks Abby, somebody's asked about the risk of scar rupture. Okay, so all right, imagine that someone's had a caesarean previously and a surgeon, an obstetrician has had to bring their baby out their tummy, and then that's all put back together again, and there's a scar there in the uterine muscle, and people are concerned that that could rupture. My understanding is, and I'm not going to quote loads of studies now, is that it is actually quite a small risk. It's vastly increased as a risk if you induce labour. So, you know, number one for a successful vaginal birth after caesarean is go into labour naturally. Allow a natural onset of labour. If that's what's right for you and your baby, then natural onset of labour is a whole lot different and vastly reduce that risk of scar rupture. I haven't got a good reframe for that. If we just say it's much better for keeping your womb nice and strong. So Abby, who's online now, hi Abs, thank you so much for permission to share. Abby did the looking around thing because she really did want to use water. So she went to 4 different hospitals, I think, and she spoke to senior midwives at all of them, and she was told at one that no, she couldn't use a pool. But just think of it as like, you can't get into a bath because it might have this consequence. It just doesn't sound like an evidence-based bit of advice, does it? It sounds a bit bonkers. Getting into water is soothing, and it also gives you that personal, private space where people can't really get at you as readily as if you're on the bed. So, and I feel like I shouldn't say that, but it's true. It's true. You can have that privacy in the space of the water birthing pool. So Abby shopped around, and a midwife recommended a birth centre for her, and she got ready to go there. That birth centre was actually further away from her home than her local delivery suite, labour ward, which has a birthing pool on it. But the advice was, you will have an easier time because the doctors are going to be more comfortable with you using a pool. Eleanor, I see you, and I'll pick up after. Hi April. I think what happened with Abby was, because it was awesome because I was there, I got to be her doula, was that when I got to her and she was in labour with her daughter who'd waited the whole of 2015 to be born, the whole of Christmas and New Year, and then decided, yes, 2016. No, 2014. And 2015 was the year that she was going to come. I got there and Abby said, I can't do half an hour to the other place. We're going to have to go to the one that's 5 minutes away, which was the place where we knew that although the midwives, a lot of them would be confident with facilitating a water birth for a woman birthing her baby vaginally after a caesarean, the doctors weren't as comfy. So this is where kind of we get into a tiny bit of drama. Hi Julia. We got to this hospital and Abby's labour was thick and fast. She had some stonking surges. They were really strong. She was doing brilliantly. Her husband is a fantastic birth support. If you're going to have a baby and have a partner with you, make sure they're on board with your hypnobirthing practice, okay? This is a little adjunct. I think this is a super bit of advice. You can practice. You can be ready. If your birth companion isn't prepared, they're not going to be as helpful as supportive as you would want them to be. So have them come to the course with you. Go to your hypnobirthing course with you. Make sure that they're clued up on what your wishes are, so that they can help you to explain those when and if the need arises. The vast majority of midwives are really, really there to support you in your choices. I realise that there are probably people from the US here, and the midwife model of care is different to yours, but we love midwives here in the UK, and we hope that you have a similar model of care over there too, so you have more choice. So the adjunct there, just thinking about birth companions, if they've been at a previous caesarean birth that maybe was traumatic, then it would be excellent for them to do a hypnobirthing course, use the hypnotherapy to put to bed what happened before and to look forward to this new birth, this different experience. So Abby's birth went like this. We got there and the coordinating midwife was fabulous. She said, right, okay, we'll get you the pool room, even though it's not quite our policy. And the doctors were a little bit unsure because it had been arranged at another one, but the hospital's very close and linked. Her notes were up to date, had plenty of information from senior midwives. That's why you have to do that, guys. You've got to put in the groundwork. Be ready by 36, 37 weeks. Have everything organised. Don't wait until you're in labour. Too late. Get all those lovely negotiations and things done. So Abby's saying that she'd agree it's very important that your partner be there to help you, to put forward your wishes and support how you want the birth to go. And using hypnobirthing and pool helps so much. It's lovely. I remember Abby getting into her pool and we had these little battery tea lights, little candles that were, you can't have a real candle in a hospital, you can have little fake ones, and we put them all round, and she got in there and smiled. And she was birthing her baby, and I can remember saying to her midwife, oh, we've missed out the drama. Okay, so we're going down the corridor from the room where she'd been sort of triaged down to the birthing pool room, and one of the doctors was like, oh, she can't go in a pool. She had a caesarean before. And we're like, okay, it's all right. Have a look at her notes, you know, it'll be okay. And, somebody's asking, how do they view it, Andy? Can you tell them to just go to the hypnobirthing group page? Sorry, guys. So we carried on with Abby down to the pool room. We sort of clocked the doctor, but we kept on going. And about an hour or so later, she got into the pool with the candles, and her body was working brilliantly. We had a midwife who'd actually been brought from the birth centre to labour ward to facilitate it. So someone who, a midwife who worked on birth centre, to come up to labour ward to work in that capacity. Now that was a real genius stroke of luck, but something that had been very cleverly thought through by consultant midwife. So think about that. Is that an option for you? What are your caregivers like? Can you go and talk to a consultant midwife and say, how are we dealing with this now? Because there are some birth centres now who are saying, yeah, all right, we will have vaginal birth after caesarean on our birth centres. I'm sure there are certain criteria that you have to fill, but they are sort of beginning to be more relaxed about it and moving away from that model of you've got to have continuous fetal monitoring. Hi, Leonie, well done on getting the kids to bed. And you've got to, be looked after with this very, very strong model of care. So the first thing that kind of stressed was get a plan, meet with senior midwives, be ready by the time you're 36, 37 weeks pregnant. Have your birth wishes organised. Go visit the place. Meet those senior midwives. And for birth companions, be clued up on how you can be really useful. And in your birth plan, hi Abby, we've dipped out. Being really clued up on who is going to be looking after you, what their ethos is, does it match yours, and if that particular hospital or birth centre doesn't, then maybe you need to go somewhere else. Or maybe you can challenge it. Maybe you can be a trailblazer. So I know that I've taught people now for hypnobirthing who have had previous caesarean birth, where they have been able to go and birth in a birth centre, and yet they've spent time negotiating, meeting with people, understanding the benefits and the risks, and those are evidence-based risks. Hi, Emma. We found last time we did Facebook Live that we got 22 minutes before it dipped out. Looks like it's 13 minutes today, so I'll try and get the next couple of points in and go to some more questions. Is Julia back? And Eleanor? Don't know. Just give us a thumbs up. Eleanor's due in 3 weeks with little time to prepare. What's the most effective thing to prepare her for vaginal birth with hypnobirthing techniques? So if she's due in 3 weeks, that means she's got a week until her hypnobirthing month. So Eleanor, I think you need to pick up the phone in the morning, find out who the supervisors and midwives are, go and have a chat if you haven't done that already. I would have imagined that by this point you probably would have had a few conversations about it. There's still time. Are they going to be supportive in your wishes? Is it going to be midwife-led care? And also, have you thought about the whole staying at home for as long as you can, domino birthing, and discuss that with your midwives? You know, staying at home until your surges are 3 and 10, lasting a good 80 seconds or so, rather than going in at the first. So labouring at home and then going in later, and listening to your body and noticing if there's anything. You just pick up the phone and speak to a midwife. Okay. I really want to move on. So there is like a top 5 things, and it's I want to say them in a way that isn't going to cause offence. I know that caesarean is right for some women and their babies, and that's okay. But for some women, I think they feel that maybe they were induced for no medical reason than just for being more than 40 weeks pregnant. And that induction of labour is what landed them up being really exhausted and unable to carry on. And so they've had their baby born out of their abdomen by caesarean section birth, and this time they like something different. So hypnobirthing will put you in a place now where you're ready and you look forward to birthing your baby, so you can separate it from the previous experience to this experience. And I'm talking about doing hypnobirthing classes with a hypnobirthing teacher and a hypnotherapist if you need anything on top. If you find that. Hello everyone else tuning in, I'm sorry that we dipped out. Just talking about what can Eleanor do in the next 3 weeks, although if her estimated due date is in 3 weeks, that means she's got like a week until due time. So you've got that whole like anywhere between 8 weeks and 42-ish weeks the baby can come. So speaking to the midwives about your birth wishes, and that's the supervisors of midwives, the consultant midwives. Go and visit the place that you want to birth. Make sure that you have the loving support of your birth companion. If that's not the case, or they don't think they can, then get yourself a doula. That would be a great idea. Doulas come in all shapes and sizes. I'm a doula. And we support you and your birth companion, and we work with the midwives to help you in your birth outcomes. Now, next up, okay, so I'm just going to recap again. So you speak to the senior midwives, you get your birth wishes ready, you're ready and organised with all the sort of paperworky stuff. By 36, 37 weeks, then you are ready for whatever happens. If you're lucky enough to be pregnant for a few more weeks, yay. The use of language in hypnobirthing is really key. So we use positive, gentle language. Using positive, gentle language is something that we're all trained in doing, and yet I think sometimes our medical caregivers just don't think the language that they use through. So they might talk about giving you a trial of labour. But if someone says to you, "Hi April," I'm just reading what April says, and I can't read it all without clicking. Well done. So if you want to read what April's written, she's kind of done, yeah, really good. Really happy for you. May the calm be with you. So talking about language, so just checking in on trial of labour and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like setting you up to fail, isn't it? It's like, oh, we'll give you a go. We don't expect it to work. And it's just like you're doing all this work to bring your confidence into, you know, I can birth my baby, my body's designed to do it, or whatever happens, I'm going to be okay with it. And then someone goes, oh yeah, but you know, it's just a trial, we'll see. The impact of language is important, and yes, you can shield yourself from it, but if you're using that positive language, then it means that that determination becomes less affected. So the other things to think about, there's a whole load of stuff here, and I'm trying to cram in as much as possible, so if it's quite fast for you, then go back and watch it another time. And I don't think you can skip through it like you can on YouTube. I think you have to listen to me like all the way. Never mind. So when was your previous caesarean? Look, if you had your previous baby by caesarean within the last 12 months, that's slightly different. You know, they're going to be like, oh, we might want to keep a bit of a closer eye on you. If you had your previous caesarean 6 years ago, then that's 6 years ago, that's quite a long time. Hi Rachel. Abby's just saying that she'd totally recommend having a doula, and is very glad to have had me. Thanks again. It was an honour and a privilege. And Abby was in the pool with her brilliant midwifery team. The primary midwife was one that had come up from the birth centre to facilitate the birth, and the secondary midwife was one of the labour ward midwives, and the difference is kind of quite visible. So the labour ward midwife had like a hairnet on, everything on, and she was quite clinically dressed, whereas the other midwife just had a sort of relaxed blue scrubs. I thought that looked different, and the midwife used wonderful language towards Abby, like, hey Abby, you are doing beautifully, and wow, and all this kind of stuff. Rather than assessing, say, for example, the contrary to that would be, so how much pain are you in? Or just not matching the vibe of the room. I've got a dark room, music playing, a beautiful husband and wife team, little candles, gentle. Okay, so thinking about the use of language. Michaela, hi. I've got as far as contacting supervisor midwives, being ready with birth plans, and having done tours by 36, 37 weeks. And the use of language and birth companions being relevantly au fait with hypnobirthing and being useful, and having used the hypnotherapy to put the previous birth behind them and they're ready for the next birth. I'm just looking over the camera at my notes. The room is covered in notes, so I can try and get as much data to you as possible. I want this to be really useful for you. Remember that you can come back and watch it. It will still be available for a while, probably forever. Yikes. Some of the top things, if you can go into labour naturally, if you can avoid using opiates, so if you can avoid using strong pain relieving drugs, okay, that's going to help. And you must eat, you must stay hydrated, you must remain able to move around and be active. All of those things matter. And your breathing techniques that you've been taught are so crucial. So now we're kind of back into normal hypnobirth territory. It's like with the vaginal birth after caesarean stuff, you've got to do all this kind of preemptive negotiating to make sure that the space within which you birth has got certain boundaries for you that you're comfortable with, and other stuff that you're just like, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, and then we get into normal hypnobirthing territory. You're like, okay, you've got a calm breath between surges, you've got your strong breathing during your surges, you've got your birth breathing as opposed to forced pushing, and perineal massage in the run up to having your baby. So Eleanor, I don't know if you made it back on, but from sort of any time from 34 weeks onwards, perineal massage and stretching is a really good way to acquaint yourself with that opening pressure, heaviness of the baby descending, that strength, that power. I'm not going to use the P word, okay? I'm not going to use the P word. I just don't want to. I think we can get around it. If you don't use the P word and you're smiling after every surge, then the chances are that, if you don't use the P word and you use things like power and pressure and strength, honestly, so many husbands, birth partners, second time, third time round, they talk about the previous births and they just say, I can't believe how strong she was. I had no idea she was so strong. Why? Why don't women think they're strong? Why don't their partners think they're strong? You are so strong. You make humans in you. That's awesome. Plus, you have uber turbo power room to squeeze and open down. Just reading some notes here. So Rachel's just saying she was 4 years after Caesarean, and they said it was irrelevant regards to risk of rupture. From her research, it seemed to be more relevant. However, I personally felt the rupture risk was very low and included severe and not severe, not needing hospitalisation. And they're also more recently lowered the risk further to the World Health Organization and NICE guidelines. Thanks, Rachel. You're always good for a bit of detail. And so I'm just going to go to April's point here. In the UK, she's looking forward to a vaginal birth after 2 Caesarean births. And lucky you, 3 babies. I had contact with my local consultant midwife and I've been supported in putting a birth plan together. I've researched my options and it feels comfortable for me. So it feels comfortable for her. That's going to be a cervix opening thing right there. If a woman is comfortable, confident with her birth wishes and that she's going to be supported, it's going to be a relaxed room and a relaxed cervix, and we hope that all of you get that opportunity and you realise that you have the right to assert yourselves and to say, actually, no, I don't want to be continuously monitored. I'd like intermittent monitoring unless we need to stick constant monitoring on. And then she goes on to say, the community team are coming to assess me at home and look after me in hospital. So at present I've declined consultant care. My birth plan is being circulated around the team. Local hospital doesn't have a birth centre, so the birth will be on the labour ward. However, they have 2 home from home rooms with pools and beanbags and mats. And I've been told I can move from one room, move around the room if I wish. Yeah, you can do whatever you like. You can move around as you wish, because that's your prerogative. You are the person in labour doing the birthing, and if you need to move, you can. And equally, if you don't want to move, you don't have to. I was at a birth in January with a woman who just lay on her side, and we just lifted her. She lay on her left-hand side, and we just lifted her top leg, and her womb squeezed this baby down and out. It's quite amazing. And the last thing April says, I'll have my doula and husband supporting me through my birth. I feel really comfortable and content with the plan that's been put into place. Awesome, well done, good prep. And there you are, you're 38 weeks, you've got everything sorted, so you can just like hang back now and look forward to the time when your baby's coming. Okay, other stuff. Oh, there was something. I've forgotten now. I should have written it down. So I'm going to summarise on the things that so Tracy's joined in. Tracy's a teacher of HypnoBirthing in North London, and she's just saying this, that a class with a HypnoBirthing teacher is great for working on fear release and working through any anxieties mum may have after a previous caesarean section. So I think that as the NICE guidelines and the WHO guidelines are telling people, all right, okay, it's not the end of the world to have a vaginal birth after caesarean. In fact, it's safer. The people are going, okay, but I don't want it to be like last time. And that's when they come across HypnoBirthing. And that's what myself and all the other HypnoBirthing practitioners out there want for you. We want you to have a positive birth experience We want you to have been able to make choices and be in a state that you can make choices you're happy with, and be able to move on. And as my dear friend Michaela would say, whether it's out the cat flap or out the sunroof, what matters is that you're really happy with that birth experience. So there's Ali. I don't know whether Ali's joined in. Oh, probably not, because I don't think I added her in. But Ali had a really interesting police helicopters just joined in outside. Welcome to South East London. I've distracted myself with a police helicopter. Ali had an interesting first birth where she... oh yeah, here's a tip for you. When you're testing your birth pool out, if you're having a home birth, always do it at kind of 36, 37 weeks. Always use a liner. So Ali's husband hadn't put a liner in, so there was a small hole in the pool. So anyway, Ali was in the pool and filled it up, and then she got to about sort of 8 or 9 centimetres of her cervix being open. But at that point she kind of opened her eyes, and what she didn't realise was that her beautiful front room was getting slowly flooded. That her husband had kept the pool topped up for her as she breathed through her surges beautifully. So her lips were lovely and plump because she'd been breathing so much. And then there's a bit of a flood, and the midwives have been trying to keep it mopped up, and he'd been keeping the water. And anyway, at that point, the adrenaline kicked in, sure enough, wouldn't it? When you think, oh my God, my home, flooding, electrics. And then things kind of stalled, and then off she went to hospital. She was transferred, and she had a Caesarean birth in the end. And this time round, she used HypnoBirthing again. And she said it worked, but it was very quick. But Ali's not here because her new baby's keeping her awake, and she's going to grab this early evening opportunity to have a sleep. So maybe we'll hear from her if we cover this again in the future, when her baby's a bit bigger and she's had some more sleep. So any more questions, guys? Yeah, Megan, it's a brilliant analogy. It comes from an absolutely superb midwife, Michaela, who's on this Facebook Live session tonight. She's just brilliant, and exactly the kind of cervix opening personality, labour enhancing person that you want in your birthing space. Okay, so here's to all the amazing midwives out there, and thank you so much for the incredibly long hours you work and the attention that you give us. We can't do it without you. Well, we kind of can, but we want you there. Do you know what I mean? Oh, that's a whole nother story. So back to stuff like natural onset of labour, eating and drinking. I hope you're all fully aware of the fact that it's really sensible to eat and drink when you're in labour. When I was learning hypnobirthing, when I was pregnant a very long time ago with my son, nearly 7 years ago, we were taught by a midwife, Judith Flood, who had trained in hypnobirthing because she could see the difference in the women coming in, because they'd done this hypnobirthing program. And she talked about how birthing a baby is like the equivalent of burning half a marathon's worth of calories. And I was like, whew, that's a few thousand calories. And sometimes in labour, I think, in my humble experience, I haven't been at many, but sometimes women are like, oh, I'm sweating. And they don't realise that their womb is this massive muscle. It's working like the clappers for you. And you're burning that fuel, you're burning that energy, and you've got to replace it. You've got to replace it with hydrating drinks. And that's not Lucozade. I don't think that's like the best thing in the world to drink. I think if you've got to have something tasty, why not have apple juice and water mixed with a bit of coconut water and a bit of rehydration salts? Eating in labour, the power of the banana. Let me tell you a story. So with an HBAC client, so somebody who's a home birth after Caesarean and had done hypnobirthing, and Lazy Daisy, another birthing program which has yoga and birth positions built into it. She'd been in the pool, doing brilliantly well, breathing through surges, a lovely husband supporting her. And this was a woman who'd had a really, really, really hard time first time round. Took a long time to recover. And here she was, proudly breathing this baby down in the pool. she hadn't eaten for a while, and it started to just sort of, I was a little bit, I need to get some food in there. And so her husband started to eat a banana, and both her husband and I tried to offer it to her. And she was kind of like a kid, when you're trying to feed a kid and they're a bit kind of like that, they're like, the spoon keeps missing. So she was doing that, and then it was the midwife that took the banana and just said, I want you to eat this. And she did, and literally within about a minute of having a mouthful of banana, there was the best surge, a really mahoosive, jolly good, like cracking, stonking surge. That's the power of the banana. That's the power of food and eating and restoring all those vitamins and minerals into your body when it's working hard. Gemma's saying that I have a friend who had a home hypnobirth after 2 sunroof births. I'm glad that you like the sunroof analogy. It's nice, isn't it? It's a good reframe. The first twins, the second 5 years later, and by the third she wanted a different experience. She did so well. I'm so proud of her. I was hoping she'd be able to join us tonight, but she's busy with her with 4 children. That's understandable. Yeah, totally, Gemma. That's amazing. Hey guys, let us know where you're watching from. Are you in the UK? Are you elsewhere? Remember that you can go back and watch these again later. So, other things, briefly touched on trying to avoid using hard drugs. I'm laughing. If you start to use opiates like pethidine, I don't know what they call it in the States. I don't know. Help me out, midwives. Then you're going to be a bit out of it, and you kind of reduced your chances of maybe having a natural vaginal birth until that wears off. Hi, Florida. Annika, that's great. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope that this is really useful. I know that I'm rattling along at quite a pace. There's quite a lot of information we can give you. I'm not quoting any studies. That will come later. We are work in progress. Let's talk about dealing with external influences. What does that mean? Is it about making sure that you've got all those things ticked, and is it about making sure that when you go into labour you're ready? Are you in the right space? Are you sure you want to be in the birth centre? Are you sure that you want to be at home? Where is it that you want to have this baby? Did you know you can keep your options open? Hi Beverly, very nice to have you here. Keep your options open. Remember over and over again that there are variations on like normality, and yet your surgeons can do all sorts of things to move babies around. And I don't know how you guys are, how you feel about things like rebozo. I don't know if you've heard of that. I trained in it recently, but look into it. It's a lovely way of holding the woman, supporting the weight of the baby and all that wonderful precious cargo, and using that during surges. So here's a little idea that you could practice with your birth partner if you're a pregnant woman watching this. When your bump is big enough, and if it isn't already now, get your partner to stand behind you and just put their hands around and underneath your bump to lift it and hold the weight. And first of all, you'll feel the relief. You'll be like, oh, wow, that's nice. I feel the relief. And the broad ligament across the front, the lower part of your abdomen will get a little bit of a rest. And that's kind of what rebozo is about. R-E-B-O-Z-O. I don't know how to share images on Facebook Live yet, so if I could, I'd be going rebozo and a link, but I don't know how to do that. Maybe we can fancy it up and tart it up on YouTube later. Just looking at Andy, because he could probably help me with that. Okay, hi Megan. I'm just going to click on your comment. So, Washington State, what are some good ways to induce labour? I know baby will come when baby's ready, but I went to 42 weeks of my last and ended up with a sunroof. Yay, the sunroof's really catching on, Kayla. Planning an HBAC for the next one. Women have different lengths of periods. Women have different lengths of gestation, of pregnancy. So, Megan, you can get monitored frequently. It really is up to you. Maybe you're a 42-weeker. And remember that there's that paradox of getting stressed about not being in labour and maybe being a bit in your sympathetic when you want to be in your parasympathetic. Talk to your baby, talk to your body, and just as much as you can allow things to go their own way. It's really easy for me to say that, but I remember teaching somebody recently in the last year who's a medic who was on who found out she was pregnant when she was on a labour ward. She ended up having a home birth as first baby, and she went to 42 weeks and 2 days. Ooh. But she was monitored regularly past 40 weeks just to make sure that everything was okay. That's something I can't answer for you, Megan, but I've given you some useful information. But, you know, some women do have longer pregnancies. So if you got pregnant again after this one and you'd had a natural onset at 42 weeks, then maybe the next one you go, okay, this one might be a 42 weeker, and yet there's no rhyme or reason because the next one could be a 38 weeker. First baby from Tasha, vaginal breech birth with, just saying that quietly. So Tasha, can I just say that with all the work you've probably done after birth number 1 to get everything back to normal in your pelvic area, I would so encourage you to work on perineal massage and stretching this time round. And there is, I'm just laughing because Michaela's sunflap, I don't know what kind of birth that is. It's one yet to be discovered. But the cat flap sunroof thing, I love it, Michaela, because it takes all the preconceived stuff, all the deeply embedded stuff out, because nobody's thought of it like that, and they go, oh yeah, it's that sunroof. But this time I want it out the cat flap. And if you want it out the cat flap, there is a little invention called an EpiNo. That's an EPI-NO. In the US, I don't know whether you can get it. You might have to import it from Europe. It's a little inflatable balloon, and I know that some of my clients have used it to great success. You insert it half into your vagina, and then you, like, there's a tube and a pumpy handle, a bit like the blood pressure thing they do on your arm, and they pump that up. And what it does is the balloon just stretches the vaginal outlet. It's not all the way inside your vagina, it's just the opening. And there's a gauge on it, and it's calibrated. And so your aim is to stretch the vaginal outlet to kind of 7-8 centimetres dilation. So you're used to that when your baby's coming out. You can't just use the EpiNo, you still have to do the manual stuff. I've done a thing on YouTube if you want to look up perineal massage instructions. So, hi Ali, I was talking about you earlier where your ear's burning. Just saying that you used HypnoBirthing this time round and it was quick. So if you want to elaborate, now's your chance. So Gemma, I'm in Dorset. I'd love to be a HypnoBirthing doula. I'm also on my 3rd baby, 33 weeks pregnant. Had the most amazing births last 2 times and looking forward to this one. Aww. Yeah, look forward to the birth of your baby. That's what HypnoBirthing does. And you probably don't find that amongst women that haven't got that positive focus. And just a little heads up again, if you've joined us later on, you can go back and watch this from the start. Oh, joy. Yeah, go back and watch it from the start. We've stressed the importance of having a written birth preferences, wishes document that you've got signed off by senior midwives. So, pardon me, that's not the midwife that you probably get your checkups with. She's perfectly brilliant, but the person that you need is someone with kind of a bit of clout up the hierarchy, and the consultant midwife is the same rank as the consultant doctor, and the supervisor of midwives is equally able to orchestrate, you know, what you're after. If they aren't being cooperative, then find yourself a birth centre or a labour ward who will support you. And your birth companion. So HypnoBirthing teaches birth partners stuff to do. HypnoBirthing gives them tools, it gives them advice, it gives them tips, it gives them massage, it gives them all sorts that they can do to support you so that you can just get on with birthing and being in your birthing body and trusting in the process. And I think it takes away from dads, and women. I know there are women birth partners and girlfriends and wives. it takes that fear out of it for them, and it normalises birth. And it's an honour and a privilege to be at birth, and to be able to manage your state. So I think the breathing techniques that you use and practice, by the way, you don't just go to class and do it. So that was something I discussed in the preparation for this session, that people will say, oh, I haven't got time to do a class, I'll just read the book. Yeah, you could just read a book, but that's not really hypnobirthing, is it? That's not going, right, 5 or 6 times a week, I'm going to spend a good amount of time practicing, getting into deep relaxation, visualising the baby being born, getting my birth partner on board, thinking things through, going and visiting the place that I'm going to birth at. That's the, you know, the planned place that you'd like to go and have your baby if you're not staying at home. It's not a question, guys, of just rocking up somewhere you've never been with people that you probably never met before and having to build that rapport with them so quickly for it to work really well. Go and check it out beforehand, and remember to take an offering for the midwives. Always remember to take nice things for them. Nice fruit, tea, etc. I'll just share a quick story with you about going and checking out the place where you're going to birth. So I gave birth to my son using hypnobirthing on a labour ward, but I wasn't there very long. But when I was about 30 weeks pregnant, I had a bit of bleeding, a bit of spotting, so I went to like the day assessment place to get checked. And I hung around all day waiting, really. I think they weren't that worried about me. And I was in a waiting room full of women who supposedly come in because they're in labour who weren't. And I was like, my hypnobirthing teachers told me that I'm supposed to stay at home for as long as I can. And she said to me that I've got to conserve my energy because I'll need it to birth. And here are all these women expending all their energy and sitting in a room full of people they don't know, which isn't necessarily what mammals like to do to go into labour. They like to go off somewhere private. Remember that bit? Anyway, so I was in there and had a really interesting day, meeting all sorts of people, talking to them about their pregnancies and mine. And then, finally, a woman came in who was in labour. And she got down on all fours in front of me, and she had this mighty surge. And then she got up and smiled, but then she turned around and looked at me and apologised, said, oh, I'm really sorry if I scared you. I didn't mean to. I was like, you haven't scared me. That's what I want. When I have my kid, I want to come in and I want to do what you just did, kind of thing. Anyway, then she jumped the queue at triage, and according to one of the midwives, she had her baby 2 hours later. I was like, yeah, that is what I'd like to do. And that, luckily for me, is what happened. I did my practice, and I spent about 5 hours at home, and then we went in, and then I had him a couple of hours after that. So it was about 7.5 hours in total. And I think it was staying at home for as long as I could. That's another bit of strategy for you to think about. The last thing I'm going to talk about tonight, unless you've got any questions, guys, now's your chance. Any more questions? Last thing I want to talk about is that cascade of intervention. So cascade of intervention might ring a bell with those women who maybe have had an induced labour the first time round, and it's a massive challenge because you're kind of spending a couple of nights in hospital in a room with 3 other women and their families, and you don't get any sleep, and yet you've still got the whole birth bit on the end once the labour does become established. And then once you are in labour and you probably haven't got much energy left in the tank, and I know other hypnobirthing teachers might scoff at me for saying this, but I've got to be honest with women and say, unless it's for medical reasons, why would you do it? Why would you have your labour induced? And there is a direct correlation between the induction of labour and caesarean birth, and it's probably because most women get very, very tired, unless you were about to go into labour anyway and it kind of just jump-started it. And then you just get the first level of the induction rather than another after another and after another, and leading on and on and on. So with the induction of labour, there's a really, really good booklet that you can get from the AIMS website. It's aims.org. Andy, could you put this up? Is it aims.org.uk, I think? Have a little gander and we'll put it up in the comments for you. So, Abby's just saying that she's had quite a traumatic experience first time around, which ended up in an emergency C-section. She's so happy that she managed to have the vaginal birth after Caesarean that she wanted, as it was the most amazing, empowering, positive experience of her life. It was so worth all the effort of getting all the facts, the knowledge, the discussions as consultants. Traipsing around. You did. Actually, Abby could have written a guide of South East London hospitals, because she really did have all the in-depth, all the in-depth knowledge. And you believed you could do it, and that she could have the birth that she wanted this time around. Abby's daughter, by the way, when she came out, she was so relaxed. She was fast asleep for about 9 or 10 minutes, which meant that Abby kind of climbed out the birthing pool. We put a little towel carpet down for her over to the bed, and she got onto the bed and with her baby on her belly. And it was only when she sort of presented a nipple to her daughter's face that a little eye opened. How about that? Baby born fast asleep. Interesting. You did amazing, Abby. And you also put the work in. So I think that's what we're stressing. Okay, so it's kind of something that we could talk about all night, but I think I've covered a lot of ground. Andy's just passed me a note to say VBAC and birthing pools. Oops. Right at the beginning we talked about birthing in water, if you've had a previous sunroof birth. If your baby was born at a sunroof last time and you want to birth them out the cat flap this time in a pool, that's okay. I mean, surely your consultants and your medical caregivers aren't advising you not to take baths. So what's the difference when you're in labour? Just think this stuff through. Just give it a slightly cynical question and ask for evidence, okay? Always ask for a second opinion. Go and do your research. Speak to senior midwives. And for those of you who aren't blessed with midwife care, this group has got plenty of midwives in it. So I'm sure they can't give you direct advice, but they can share really, really good qualified information. And we look forward to hearing your stories. We look forward to sharing stuff. Which hypnosis are you going to listen to today, tonight, as part of your practice? So just thinking ahead now. What are you going to do? If you're very close to your birthing time, do you think maybe a phone call? Remember, the midwives are on 24/7, so you could make those phone calls now. Who's the supervisor of midwives? Can I have a chat to her? I just want to go through my birth wishes. When's a convenient time to meet? And on that note, I think that's it. So cheers. Thanks very much for joining us, and good night.